All right, so the big change for how shoot and edit requests will happen is the purpose of this. So what's going to happen now is, well, I guess a little backstory. One of the things that's happened is through the requests form over here, so production requests, most everyone has been doing as is, shoot, or edit, and then filling this out. So this can still work. We can still use this, but the preferred method will be to actually just create your event on the calendar. So what that looks like is over here on the calendar, you'll just find your spot when you're wanting to book something, drag across, create the event, and go through that process. I'll show you that in a second. But the reason I wanted to do that is so that we avoid some scheduling conflicts. So what's happened a lot recently is, let's say Liz may request Nate on a shoot on Thursday. And so she, puts in a request on Thursday for Nate. But we can see that Nate has an all-day event already scheduled for Thursday. So she's not seeing that. There's a way that she can, but this new way will make this a lot more obvious. So anyway, it starts this conversation where I have to go back to Liz and say, well, Nate's not available. Can you work with this person or that person, or do you want to move the shoot? So it starts this conversation that goes back and forth. One of the things that we've run into is it seems that several people don't have their notifications set correctly inside of Circus. So I'll do an @mention in the comments and say, Nate is busy on Thursday. Can you work with this shooter? And then I never get a reply. And so then I'm sitting there thinking, well, I have not approved or booked this shoot, and we're getting close to that date, and I don't have a reply. So then I wind up having to go out to email or just walk out there and say, hey, I never got an answer. So we're going to circle back around. We need to make sure everybody's got your notifications set correct so that we see those kinds of things. But this new way to book things will prevent that from the very get-go. So as a producer or someone requesting production services, the way to do this now is go over to the calendar. So let's again say, we'll use Liz as the example. Liz wants to book a shoot on Thursday. So she would come up here to this requests view, which you have to, down in the bottom left of this, click here, and you can do a search for requests. So it says request manager. Make sure you've got that turned on in your view. So that would show up at the top of your list. So if you want to book a shoot on Thursday, you can just drag across, let's say from 1 to 5. So you drag across 1 to 5 on the requests line. Then you'd hit the plus in the middle of that new booking. And again, just so we have some visual continuity, if it's a shoot, just type shoot, all caps, and then whatever the project is for. So I can't think of the name of any of her projects right now, but let's say campus health. I don't know. So the big thing now is under booking template, you have to select field shoot or edit. So what type of booking are you creating? In this case, she wants to create a field shoot, and then it changes the form here, right? So then Liz would come in and fill all of this out. So select Arizona Illustrated. Then under projects, she would find her projects. So in this case, LS, all the projects for Liz have her initials at the beginning. So just typing LS shows the short list of her stuff. Let's say podcast water is what it actually is. Okay. Under tasks, you don't have to select anything here. That'll happen later. So just select Arizona Illustrated and then the name of the project you're requesting a shoot or an edit for. So same as before, fill out as much information as you can on the description line. Producer, you would select yourself normally. Location, number of cameras, all the stuff we're used to, right? So the form is actually the same. It's just that you're filling out some of it instead of me. So the idea here is that you can see this in context on the schedule. So if Liz wants to book Nate, if she has Nate in her view, then she would see that he's already tied up. So then maybe she just goes up to John instead and says, okay, well, John is who I want on this shoot. Okay. So Brian, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Brian Nelson.
I think it's, yeah, definitely a lot easier. I think checking the schedule is something that sort of hasn't always been intuitive within the system before. So
this has been a request in the software for a long time, since we started with it, and they just rolled this feature out at the last big update. So as she's going through here, says one camera. Additional equipment is a new field that we added to this form. So this would be, let's say you want the camera slider or the boom pole. So you can just type in here if you're needing additional equipment. Also, we added a checkbox for whether you need a grip or not. Okay, so all of that makes sense. The big thing that will happen next is once you hit OK on this, this will create an approval request on my side. So Zach and I will be the ones approving requests on the calendar. So we'll get a booking request and we'll be able to click on it, see it on the schedule in context with everything else, and approve that. And when we do that, that's when we would actually assign the shooters, the cameras, the vans, whatever. Okay. So that all makes sense. Now this one, so what you will see if you're making the request, this will be not filled in and it will have a dashed line as the outline on it. That just shows that it has not been approved yet. It didn't do that for me because I'm the one that approves it.
One question I have, is this work the same way on the app? Because obviously you got to drag it with your finger if you're on your phone. So
on
how
the
would
app,
that work?
So great question. On the app, you don't get to drag it on the calendar. You actually just have to hit add booking. So if you are, say, looking at the schedule view on the iOS app, down at the bottom left is the button that says add booking. So I'd still recommend go ahead and go to schedule and go look at the stuff and the people that you want to book, make sure they're available, and then you would hit add booking.
Okay.
And in there is add booking template. So you would select field shoot on that. So it all works just the same, and except you're not dragging it on the schedule. Now, the other thing, here's a tip for everybody using the iOS app. Here's a tip. When you view the schedule, this is a little bit clumsy to look at the whole schedule like this. So what I found works quite a bit better is in the top right, there's a button that says events. So if you tap events, can't do it backwards, it gives us this view. So you see the whole month. And if you click on a day, then it shows just the events that are on that one day. That's a little more tidy view, but you can clean that up even more. Make sure that down in the bottom right, you've selected only the stuff you want to see. So as a producer, what I would recommend is you can view production services, which would be all of our shooters and editors, select yourself, and maybe, I don't know, a van or a camera kit. But the big thing would be to view yourself in here and view production services people. And so that's
what if we're using the web browser version? Does this not have any of this functionality?
No, it has all the same functionality. So if you're doing this from the web, it looks just the same. Let me get that pulled up and I'll show you. All right, so from here, you'd go to schedule, and it always defaults to the month view. I don't know why. So if you click week. So again, down here at the bottom left, it's showing that you're seeing all. So you could come through here and let's again pretend I'm Liz. So I want to see Liz and I want to see production services. So I just typed SER and it shows production services. So I can select all of that at a time. Right, so it shows me all of the production services people. So I hit done and that changes my view. Now remember though, we want to view requests too. So requests shows up at the top. You'll have to select everybody or every resource that you want to see.
Okay, so if I just click all members, I guess there's a members click.
You can do that, but I would do production services instead. Right, so it shows me all of the production services people.
Yeah, and there's a way to save these as well, so you don't have
Yeah,
to keep
I'll
on
show you
adding
that.
it. Yeah.
All right, I'll do.
So just do a
production
search for
services.
production services and turn that checkbox on.
Okay, yeah, that looks more like what you got up.
And be sure and select yourself as well. So like in
Okay.
this view, this would be as Liz is looking at it. So she's seeing requests, she's seeing herself, and she's seeing all of the production services team.
Okay,
Okay. Once you've done that, you can come down here and view this. You can hit save filter and then save it with your own name so that every time you come back in here, if it's not looking correct, you don't have to go through and check all the people again. You can just hit recall of your name. So for instance, I've got one called Sean's View. Right.
okay.
All right, so again, Liz is just going to put something new on the request line. Booking template, she would select field shoot. Project. Now, if you're using the app, this will autofill, but for some reason on the web, it's not doing this. It's a bug they know about. They're going to try to fix that for us. So you just start typing illustrated. Anything you type, it starts populating this list. So this is an Arizona illustrated shoot. That filters down here. So all the projects, all the segments have your initials on the front. So Brian, yours would be BN dash. So you can just type BN and it shows all of your projects. So Liz is going to select podcast water. You don't have to do anything on tasks. And then all the rest of this form is just the same as we've seen before. Put as much description as you can in here so the shooter knows what's going on. Under producer, you would select yourself here. Location, right? This is not new. We know this stuff. Number of cameras, 1. I did add a couple of fields, so additional equipment. So camera slider, GoPro, whatever. And the checkbox for grip needed. Now, on the web, it's a little harder to get real fine details when you're dragging from a start to an end date. So you would modify those right here. So say Thursday, start at noon, and we're going to shoot until 5. I have a request in for them to change this from 24-hour time so that it honors whatever your computer is set to and starts on Sunday, you know, US stuff. So they're working on that. So that's where you would fine tune your shoot request time. So in the bottom left down here, this little preference button, if you select that and then go to notifications.
Yep.
So these all default on.
Yeah.
I have more stuff turned on than probably most users will since I'm an admin, but the things you want to make sure you do have turned on, anything that says mentions. So for everybody using Cirkus, I'm trying to really push this idea of if you're making a comment on something, and you want a specific person to see that, make sure and do a mention. So at, and then start typing their name, and it will fill in and you can select them. That will give them a specific notification. So anything that says mentions, make sure those are turned on. Now, the differences between inbox, email, and push. Inbox is inside of the app. So that's up here at the top left. That gives you a notification. That's your inbox. Email will actually send you an email with that notification. But push will send you a push notification if you've got the app installed on either desktop, iPhone, iPad, whatever. So that will give you a pop-up notification on your device. This is probably more typical of what an end user would have selected. So I've got task comments turned on. I don't use any of the email stuff. My preference is the push notification. So task comments, task mentions, a task gets assigned to me. I want a notification on that. Over here under bookings, when there is a sub-project mention, a booking comment, booking mentions and replies, and booking schedule changes. So these are the ones that as a producer, you're probably going to want to make sure you have turned on.
Okay.
I'll leave that there for a second so you can look at it. I'm recording this also, so we can send it out to everybody else too. You might also want booking approval requests and responses. So that is directly related to what we just walked through. So when you create a booking request, you would be notified when it's approved or any kind of response on it. So project mentions. All right. So I'm going to go over here.
Just to be clear, that I mean, I think one of the ambiguous things, the difference between tasks and sort of the projects. I mean,
this will clear a lot of that up, because what's been happening when you make a request, it has been a task request.
right.
And then from that task request, I create a booking, which is something that's actually on the calendar. So this software update fixes that. You guys will no longer be creating a task request at all. You're creating booking requests, so actual calendar events. So that's been the big software update we've been waiting for, is this. So that, I think, Brian, should clarify a lot of the differences between tasks and bookings.
Right.
Now, the only other thing regarding that would be, I'm hoping to get everyone really participating in completing tasks when they're done. So any given thing, let's say assigned to anyone. So in the task view over here on the left, you're probably going to want to change this to assigned to me. Now, this dummy account that I've got created, it's not going to show anything because we're not using it for anything. So I'm going to change this back. So let's say comic book chemistry, Brian. So the idea here would be that once you're done building the spine for this, you would mark that as done. And once everything is really working, all the pieces are falling into place, then in theory, when you click done on build spine, then that would trigger whoever's doing the edit that they can start.
The only thing I would say about that is that it's pretty automatic. I mean, obviously we're building the spine and I don't usually schedule an editor until a time that I know the spine's going to be done. So it's just sort of one of those things. It's like kind of,
okay.
I feel like it should be more automated. Like it's not necessarily something we need to go in and fill in, because it's just another sort of thing that we have to remember to do in the process that it's just sort of a given, I feel like.
Okay. And we can modify these tasks. So if build spine and producer approval, if those are of no use to you, then we can strike those.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, I don't think, I mean, it's just a given. I'm going to build the spine and the spine needs to be ready for when the editor starts.
the idea is that this can automate a lot of the process for us. So when you check this as complete, then it would notify the editor who's assigned to it that they can start. And then when they mark their edit as complete, then it would notify you that it's ready for your approval. So that's the idea, is that all of that pipeline is automated. Whereas right now we're doing all that via emails and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue is it's not always automated because we have a back and forth with the edit. It's not just a matter of going in and clicking things. So, you know, that back and forth usually covers that information. So it's just sort of another task to go in and make sure everything's clicked and
Here's the
finished.
other reason for that, though. So let me throw this out, and this is going to be probably more for Andrew. But the idea behind that is that under tasks over here, whoever's the showrunner will be able to see the status of every segment that's in the production process, right? So these little circles here show how far along a project is. So the example might be Andrew needs one more segment to complete an episode. He could come in here and say, okay, what segment is almost done? Right?
Right. And I mean, so we have our one-on-ones, or we will be with Andrew, say, and he's kind of keeping tabs on that as well. But I think this is helpful. Again, it's just some of the tasks listed in there are just sort of their redundancies that,
and we can absolutely modify those. I'm totally open to that. So I kind of made those tasks in a vacuum. So let's get Andrew in place, get him kind of settled in, and we can start working on what would be most useful to the team as a whole. So yeah, the idea, though, going from the very beginning was to have a dashboard of sorts. So managers, showrunners, whoever, and producers also could look and see the status of all of their projects. But to do that, we have to have some check marks to mark as completed. So anyway, we'll circle back around. I'll chat with Andrew and see what would be most useful to him. So, all right. Thanks for the time, guys. Shoot me an email if you have any questions or anything. I'm actually sitting down at NAB this coming week with the development team for this software. They've been really responsive when we have requests, feature updates and things like that. So if you've got anything and we want to get in front of the dev team, let me know, and I'll be able to do that in person next week. So,
Cool.
all right.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See ya.